This is the striper EnricoTail. This is a classic striper fly that typically is made with bucktail, but we're going to modernize it a little bit by using some EP fibers in 2 different colors, and we're also going to be using the EP sparkle to add a little flash to the belly. And this fly pattern also uses epoxy or UV resin to build a large clear head around the front part of the fly, while also holding the shape of the body to keep it from fouling around the hook. For this fly, we'll be using a size 2 saltwater hook, and I'm going to build a little thread base about an eye's length behind to about half of the hook shank, where we're going to be tying in and wrapping our diamond braid. And then next we're going to be taking about a 5-inch bundle of Krystal Flash, and we're going to be tying that in about halfway, folding it over itself, and then tying that in. And for all these materials that we're adding here, because we want the fly to be fairly streamlined, we're going to tie in with tight wraps at the beginning, and as we move back towards the body, and we're going to be doing looser and looser wraps to keep the fibers from splaying too much. And then we're going to add a full strip of the EP fiber in white, and I'm tapering the ends here and tying this in about halfway, and then folding it back on itself and tying it in. And then same thing here with the EP sparkle. We're going to tie this bundle in about halfway, and then fold it back and tie the rest in. And it does help to comb out the sparkle fibers here, because sometimes they can get tangled in themselves before we add the next layers. And then I'm adding a couple pieces of Flashabou around the sides of the fly, down the tail. And I'm tying it in on one side, wrapping it over and tying it in on the other. And then we'll add about the same size piece of the green EP fibers. And I've tapered the ends, tied it in halfway, and folded it back. And now to add a little contrast, we're going to be adding some Peacock Hurl on top of the fly. I've got about 5 or 6 pieces here. We're tying this to the length of the tail, trimming it, and then working it back. And make sure you have those loose wraps on the back on the Peacock Hurl, so these tend to stick up. And I'm tapering off the head and adding a whip finish before we add our eyes. And I'm going to add an eye on each side to help form the body here. And I'm going to pinch the fibers into place and add my UV resin and then cure it. We're just using a little bit of the UV here to build the shape. And then do the same thing on the other side. And we're just building the body back to where the braid ends and meets the hook. And once that's formed, now it's a lot easier to get a more rounded off head and body with the UV resin. And I'm working in quite a bit here, and I'm keeping the fly spinning in the vise. This helps even everything out and round out the resin and the shape of the head. And while I'm spinning, I'm using the UV light to cure everything in place. It helps give you a nice, consistent, rounded shape rather than using a bodkin. And the last step is to trim off any long or wild fibers, and then comb the materials into shape. And there's the Striper EnricoTail, a new take on a striper and baitfish pattern that you should definitely try.